next generation of VR is finally approaching more than 6 years after PlayStation VR 1 first changed the way that we, well, some of us at least, will forever play video games. Because of this, PlayStation VR 2 has me more hyped than any console or peripheral launch ever before. But there's a lot of misinformation out there, and since it seems that we know a bit more about PSVR 2 than the average bear, let's dive right in. Here's everything we know about PlayStation VR 2. Sony first confirmed the existence of the PlayStation VR 2 through a blog post all the way back in February 23rd, 2021. Senior Vice President of Platform Experience Hideaki Nishino spoke in vague generalities, casually mentioning that the headset wouldn't launch in 2021, which of course we'll talk about more in just a minute. And just 2 months later, we get our first look at the new Sense controllers. It seems like Sony was picking up speed, but then crickets. We heard nothing out of Sony again until January of this year, when PlayStation CEO Jim Ryan took the stage at CES and revealed the official specs of the headset, which without parole managed to accurately leak about 4 months earlier, the official name and logo, and of course, our first look at Horizon Call of the Mountain. The following month, February of 2022, Sony revealed the first images of PSVR 2, and, well, it certainly doesn't look cutting edge or next gen. In fact, it's pretty much the same size and shape of a PSVR 1 with a black and white motif. That said, no one had any complaints about the PSVR 1's form factor, so why mess with what works? The patented Halo design makes a return, and from all reports, it'll be just as lightweight as the original, if not more so. One of the few new design features is, thankfully, a physical IPD slider, which makes sharing your headset and adjusting your pupil distance infinitely less cumbersome than before. The PSVR 2 specs put it right up there with the best consumer headsets available. The 2K per eye resolution equate to a 4K image with an OLED HDR display using Fresnel lenses. But don't worry, these aren't the God ray-inducing Fresnel lenses you're probably used to. Sony filed a patent in 2017 for a new type of Fresnel lens that should be the best on the market. The refresh rate is the same as PSVR 1, while the FOV has been up to 110 degrees, which by comparison is 10 degrees more than the PlayStation VR 1 and 20 degrees more than Quest 2. And you should be able to achieve a slightly higher FOV by manually adjusting the lenses. The improvements don't end there though. Using Tobii eye tracking, the headset will be able to tell where you're looking, which will be great for in-game interactions. But when combined with FOVEATED rendering, a technique that only renders your focal point at the highest resolution, well, that frees up a ton of processing power, meaning that games on PSVR 2 should be able to look just as good as their PS5 flat-screen counterparts. Sony's obviously pretty concerned about motion sickness, as evident by their rigorous QA testing on PSVR 1, but they've taken things a step further with PSVR 2, by including haptics in the headset controlled by a single motor. Studies have shown that haptics in VR can significantly reduce or even eliminate motion sickness. For those of us who don't suffer from motion sickness, this will still be a game changer. The added immersion from the rev of an engine, the feeling of a strong gust of wind, or even the subtle sensation of footsteps as you walk is gonna be pretty next level. Whether you loved PSVR 1 or hated it, I think the one thing we can all agree on is that the Move controllers, for so many reasons, were not ideal for VR gaming. Light tracking required you to be standing in full view of the PlayStation 4 camera, so turning full circle frequently resulted in a loss of tracking. And if your room was too bright or had reflective surfaces or whatever, let's just say there were too many things that could easily go wrong. PSVR 2 fixes all of this with the use of inside-out tracking, which puts IR cameras in the headset itself, making tracking the controllers much more reliable. The controllers, now officially called the Sense controllers, include analog sticks, grips, and triggers with finger touch detection, haptic feedback, and adaptive triggers. And if you played any games with the PS5 DualSense controller, you already know just how much more immersion this adds to the proceedings. Unlike PSVR 1, PSVR 2 will be much easier to hook up. Sony themselves have said it'll connect with a single cable, rather than the breakout box and mess of wires we dealt with last gen. And a couple months back, Without Parole leaked that the cable will be detachable, and if need be, replaceable, with one end being USB-C that'll plug directly into the PlayStation 5, and the other end being proprietary. While wearing the headset, you can now see your real-life surroundings with new pass-through functionality, officially called see-through on PSVR 2. It comes in handy when you want to easily check where the PSVR 2 Sense controllers are in your room without taking the headset off. To access the see-through mode, you can do it through the PSVR 2 settings menu, where you'll also be able to adjust the cinema screen size, and you can turn the headset vibration on or off. Or you can just hit the function button, seen here, located at the bottom of the headset. See-through can also be used to customize your play area for PSVR 2. The cameras will allow you to scan the room, while the controllers will let you further adjust the play area to fit your playstyle in room. If you get too close to the boundary while playing, you'll receive a warning that you're approaching the edge of the play area. We woke up on September 14th to learn that multiple outlets went hands-on with PSVR 2 during a press event the week prior. They got to play demos of Resident Evil Village, Horizon Call of the Mountain, Saints and Sinners Chapter 2, and Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy's Edge. So what did they have to say? Well, quite a bit actually. Over on Eurogamer, Ian Higton wrote, "Wow, wow, wow, wow. That's the word that keeps springing to mind when I try to sum up my time with PlayStation VR 2. And Andrew Rayner from Game Informer echoed a similar statement when he wrote, "I let out an audible wow just minutes after starting Resident Evil Village on PlayStation VR 2. The reports are in, and luckily, they're extremely positive."
What does the future of VR gaming look like? Well, it's probably a lot like what I just saw at PlayStation headquarters here in California.
Horizon Call of the Mountain, very impressive. I had one of those moments where I was like, oh, this is why VR is magical and it's worth pursuing.
This headset haptic feedback just added an extra layer of immersion to the experience, especially as it was used sparingly throughout the demo just to highlight key moments of imminent danger.
PS5 owners who want an easy, that is a non-PC based way to access a high-end VR experience, PSVR 2 is very promising.
And I remember walking up these staircases now and just being mesmerized by that chandelier. Honestly, the resolution in the headset is unbelievable. I've played on a lot of different VR headsets before. This is probably, I'm going to say, the sharpest, most detailed and best looking VR headset I've used.
So far, Sony has shown off a few different PSVR 2 games, but we know of more than 50 that are in development by various third-party studios. So click the link in the description if you want to see the full rundown of all the confirmed games, which I'll be updating on a fairly regular basis. But the important thing to remember is something we leaked back in August of last year about a new focus for Sony, that when it comes to PSVR 2, there will be a much bigger emphasis on hybrid games, meaning games that are not only playable in and out of VR, but when played in VR, they're VR-AF, and they feel as though they were built from the ground up to be played in VR. Hideaki Nishino, Senior Vice President of Platform Experience, did reveal recently, though, that PSVR 2 would not be backwards compatible, therefore would not be able to play any PSVR 1 games you might own. Several developers have gone on record saying that they'll be updating their game to play on PSVR 2, and several more have told me the same thing, but, you know, off the record. So we should be seeing quite a few remasters of our favorite PSVR 1 games over the next year or so. So far, we've heard nothing about how much PlayStation VR 2 might cost, but knowing that every PSVR 2 headset comes packed with 2 Sense controllers, well, $400 to $500 sounds about right. And as far as the launch date, Without Parole leaked the Q1 release window all the way back in February of this year, so no one was terribly surprised when Sony announced recently that PSVR 2 would be launching in, you guessed it, early 2023. We're likely extremely close to a pre-order announcement, so stay tuned and make sure you join our Discord and keep an eye on the channel for the latest PSVR 2 information. Okay, that's about all the information we have on PSVR 2 currently, but obviously the rest of this year is going to be jam-packed with more details on not just games, but the headset itself. So I'll be updating this video as the news rolls in. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe to Without Parole for all the latest PSVR 1 and PSVR 2 reviews, podcasts, live streams, leaks, and of course breaking news.